Drakengard series is an unusual one. The stories they tell are unique. Hell, you could argue they're fantastic, but they don't really play too well. Drakengard 1 was stiff as hell, and Drakengard 2 is barely even canon. And Nier is actually probably the best game in this series, with decent combat, I guess, but the music and voice acting was superb. And then there's Drakengard 3, the latest game in the series, however, the first chronologically. The back of the box says, "Carnage has never looked so beautiful." We'll just have to see about that. Intoners are goddesses that brought peace to the world using the power of song. There are 5 of them that rule the 5 major provinces of the land of Midgard. One day Zero, the eldest intoner, decides to kill her 5 sisters. In the prologue chapter, Zero tries to do this and fails miserably. Her dragon companion Michael is severely injured and is forced to reincarnate into Mikhail. Also, she loses an arm, so now she has like a weird cyborg one. One of the stranger twists about the Drakengard franchise is that there are always more than one ending, but you don't reach set endings by making choices, like in Shin Megami Tensei. You get each successive ending in order from A to, in this case, D. And you can only get ending D in Drakengard 3 if you unlock all 62 weapons. We'll talk about getting weapons later. I think getting all the endings was worth it. It explains a lot about the characters and their motivations. But I'll bet you IGN didn't even make it there. The characters in this game grew on me. During the missions, they just idly chit-chat amongst themselves, and I think this is where most of the dialogue is, and while technically Mikhail is the only legitimately good member of the party, everybody else is horrible or they act like a doofus, they grew on me nonetheless, and I kinda liked the dynamic relationship between everybody, especially Mikhail and Zero. It's a weird but kind of cute relationship, you know? Like, Zero stabs him in the head, and then kills a shit ton of people when he's actually endangered. It's true love. Something else that helped flesh out the characters was the vocal work. I've heard some people say that they don't like the English vocal track and then they think it falls flat, but I was completely satisfied with it. You can download the Japanese vocal track for $5, but it's the file is massive. Honestly, I didn't see the point in it, because I was fine with the way the vocal track was in English. While I'm on the topic of audio stuff, let's talk music. This soundtrack was brought to us by Keiichi Okabe, with vocals by Emmy Evans. They did the music for Nier for the uninitiated. The director Yoko Taro told them he wanted a different soundtrack style for Drakengard 3, and they succeeded. It's worthy of Nier's legacy, though. There's not much else to say. This soundtrack has some really standout work. It is excellent. Anyway, there's this thing. This thing's a game. We're supposed to play it. And Drakengard 3 has probably some of the better gameplay in the series. Take Nier's combat and slap a shiny lock-on button on it, and that shit instead of magic, and you got yourself the combat system in a nutshell. This game doesn't play like a clunky Dynasty Warriors clone anymore, and that's a step forward. You mostly spend your time going down hallways, clearing out enemies, collecting treasure chests for weapons, upgrade doodads, and money. You usually beat a level when you reach the end of that hallway, and if you ever get tired of that, you can simply play parts of the levels, where you collect several doodads from enemies or chests in a set amount of time. Those are the side missions, which you do to unlock weapons, upgrade thingies, and money. Speaking of weapons, Zero has 4 types that she can use. She can use swords, which are all-purpose killing tools. Spears are good for taking out reinforced enemies and lines of enemies. Bracers are really good for single targets, and chakrams are good for large swarms. By the end of the game, I was only using swords and spears, but that was just my playstyle. Each weapon has its own degree of utility. You can also upgrade each weapon 3 times. There are 4 levels to each of them, so that's neat. Each time you unlock it, it gets like higher damage, and that's mostly it. And then in some sections you get to ride on Mikhail, the dragon, and he does dragon things, like shoot fireballs and headbutting and stuff. He's fun to play as, and you don't have to play as him too often, so it never really gets boring or tedious or anything, and I'm looking at you, Drakengard 1. In concept, this game sounds good, right? I mean, it's done all these things really well, especially the audio stuff, and let me tell you, I think the story is pretty excellent, but it doesn't. If you've been paying attention to the screen, you'd see that this game isn't exactly the prettiest Carnage has been before. Okay, let me cross that off the list. Drakengard 3 isn't too good. Drakengard 3 isn't too good looking. The game is clearly low budget, and it was a passion project, and it looks like one. I mean, shit, I've seen better looking PS2 games. But if it looks like shit, it's gonna run well, right? Well, not exactly. You see, that countdown on the screen isn't a time limit. It's the frame rate. In all seriousness, though, this game has no good reason to have such a low frame rate. It should at least be able to run nicely if it looks so bad. But that just isn't the case, and I guess it's another case of the low-budget blues. And I can look past shitty graphics with ease, but the frame rate definitely hurts the score. Speaking of score, it's time to give that to Drakengard 3. Unfortunately, this is not Whose Line Is It Anyway, so the points do matter. The story gets the 8.5, the gameplay gets a 7.5, the music and sound get a 9. The visual integrity, which is, you know, visuals, gets a 5 out of 10. And the enjoyment gets a 9. I really liked this game. I had a lot of fun with it, and I can't really say much else. The average of the entire score and a fitting overall score for this game is a 7.6 out of 10. It's a good game. It's got its flaws, but I think it's definitely worth checking. Should I review next time? We've got Persona for the PSP, Burnt Toast, or Hell's Hotel Services. I'll let you vote on them in a straw poll or something. We'll see what happens. It'll all be post-editing. See you next time.